Flim, 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 flim.
Flim, 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 flim. Hello, and welcome back to Elevating the Genre, episode 11. Look at that, double digits. We are your co-hosts. I am Christopher Morrison, and that, as always, is...
Dominic,
and we are here to talk about all things that make smart, geeky stuff actually smart and geeky. Today, we are calling an audible, ladies and gentlemen. We had at the end of last episode, if you're following along in podcast land, we had said we were going to try to get some Mr. Greg Pak action on you, for you. That is still going to happen. That is a definite. We're just going to delay that for a little while. And today we're calling an audible to reboots, requels, remakes, and sort of prequels. We're sad to throw on prequels because it kills the alliteration, but it's there. And we're going to talk about that in a really wide scope. Anywho, so awesome. Welcome
Chris,
back.
that is such an Americanism, by the way, calling an audible. Do they have audibles in soccer?
That's a very good question. That's right. Sorry, that's true. Sorry, that is a football reference for those people out in podcast land.
American football reference.
Sorry. So we're changing the plan. We've switched up the schedule, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sure there's a word for that in world football. I don't think it's audible. But anyway, that's all. That was my only point.
No, I appreciate that, brother. And obviously, ladies and gentlemen, shock surprise, there's no visual this week. We're having some tech issues. Shock, whatever happens. So we're just all audio. We're in the theater of the mind this week only.
This is the one that you just listen to while you're jogging or working out or whatever.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
We'll try to use our soothing voices.
We'll do our best. So rock and roll. So we always start off with our first segment, which is what is elevating our genre. I can never remember who fuck goes each week, so I don't know. You go first this week, Dom. What's elevating your genre this week?
Okay, well, elevating my genre this week is I got opening night tickets for Rogue One. That doesn't even really that doesn't fit the bill at all, but it's something I'm excited about.
Yes, and you're proud of it.
I got a whole bunch of tickets to go see a midnight showing on the first night that Rogue One premieres in America. I know you guys will have watched it like 7 times already by then. In America, it's December 15th on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And okay, corollary to that, elevating my genre is me and my sister throw these theme parties sometimes. Theme cuisine and cocktail parties.
Cool.
Yeah, often based on Star Wars and superheroes. And so this is really a plug for my sister. So
sweet.
Whatever.
Let's do it.
It's my sister. She's great. She's a pastry chef. She's a great chef. And the Star Wars theme parties become a bit of a tradition. So if we get our shiznit together, we are going to throw one in a couple weeks. And she's agreed conceptually to make a Jakku and cheese, which would be a massive plate of macaroni and cheese.
Yes.
Using Jack cheese as a primary cheese, obviously, and decorated in a tableau with fallen AT-ATs, Star Destroyers, and whatever else we can think of that is edible.
Holy shit!
And maybe if you want to put up like the thumbnail image for this audio only podcast, I might send you the picture of our previous thing, which was the Hoff potato salad, which was one of our finest achievements ever. I don't know if you've seen my Hoff potato salad.
I have seen that picture. I just didn't know you were involved with it. I thought you just grabbed it from somewhere. Oh my god!
No,
your blood made that.
That my sister made it.
That's
she made
amazing.
it out of potato salad and cheese and eggs.
Ladies and gentlemen, I promise you I will get that up. I promise you I will get that up for you to bask in the amazing glory that is the Hoff potato salad. It is fucking amazeballs. It is.
And then when we were prepping the party, and then when I said maybe we need the power generators right here, she just looked up the power generators real quick on the phone and made them out of cheese in like 10 minutes. It was
in
one of the most beautiful. Anyway, so Elevating My Genre, we're gonna have a cool Star Wars party, and
okay,
someone's gonna be there. I don't know if it's gonna be you.
Won't be me, unfortunately.
And moving on.
Makes me sad. But you have to promise me something. Are you ready? Okay.
Yes.
You have to, either you have to do this or somebody at the party has to do it. When someone goes back for seconds, someone has to say, "Why do we always have to go back to Jakku and cheese?" Make that happen for me, brother. Make it happen.
What's with going back to Jakku and cheese?
Yes, somebody has
Why
to
does
say.
everyone need... Well, because...
Exactly.
Yeah, and eventually we eat the whole planet. That's the other Death Star reference that happens. The planet is devastated by the end of the party.
By the mouths, by the hungry maws of your guests. That's awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. All right, so it's hard to back up. It's hard to. I just feel weak next to Jakku and cheese. But
well, it's conceptual too. It might not happen.
It might not happen. Okay, well, even the concept.
So think about it that way.
Even the concept is fantastic.
Right.
So I just, for reasons I'll get into at the very end of the podcast, I revisited one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and actually, every time I watch it, it reminds me it's one of my favorite movies of all time as well. A little flick called The Descent, a 2005 horror movie out of England, directed by a dude named Neil Marshall. For those that are in the know, he directed Dog Soldiers as well, which is a hidden gem of a very good werewolf movie, mix of a war movie and a werewolf movie on like no money. If you can sort of get past some of the weak special effects in that because they just had no cash, it's a good movie as well. But The Descent is just a fucking, it's one of those things where you watch a filmmaker make a movie and you're like, wow, super potential, and then wham, next movie, potential fulfilled. The Descent is just brilliant. It's 5 women who go into a cave and have to fight these bat people, and that sounds ridiculous and it sounds stupid, and it has no reason to be anywhere near as good as it is, but it is a really good script. Those 5 women are real characters. It's super well performed. All of the actresses do a really nice job, and it's just fucking creepy because they don't just go into a cave. They go down. They go like they're like spelunking, like full on, and it's claustrophobic and it's creepy and it's filmed brilliantly, and the world that the relationship that surrounds these women is really fleshed out in a. I don't know, in a really brilliant way, and it uses a lot of filmic language, and it's a textbook of a film. So anyway, so if you haven't checked it out, find it. Neil Marshall's The Descent, just a fantastic, fantastic flick that I got to go back and revisit this week. So
everyone's always told me it's great. As you know, I don't really follow the horror movies, but people I trust have always been like, that movie's wonderful. Yeah,
it's bloody fantastic. So here we go. This is a little bit of a new thing for us, but I think it was always part of the podcast. We're gonna delve into a concept this week, and again, we'll get really specific about how that concept, is played out and both of our feelings about it. So, but we're gonna do more of this as we keep going along because so far we've sort of been highlighting the work of one creator or a couple of creators or our specific IP. But this time we're going to sort of tackle this as a concept, and again, this is the very thing that's happening that we're all having to deal with as fans of genre stuff, or just as pretty much every moviegoer now has to confront this at some point, which is this idea of rebooting either a franchise or a movie or just any kind of story, or a requel, which we could even spend probably a whole podcast is trying to define, or just the old term, the remake, or of course also what happens an awful lot now, these prequels. So that's what we're going to dive into. So I thought, Dom, the way we'd start on this was we'll sort of set up how we got here, because I think that is important, and by how we as in the movie going public got here through what the hell Hollywood is, and this is really mostly Hollywood, but as we all know, as Hollywood goes, so goes the rest of the marketplace, the world's marketplace. So first I thought we'd sort of unpack about why this is happening, and particularly why this is happening right now. Do you want me to sort of start throwing those ideas out, or do you have something you want to dive in there? Why do you think
I don't have an initial rant on that part, so why don't you lead?
Okay.
I'm sure I'll develop one.
Fantastic. All right. So this is less ranty, and for me, this is a little bit trying to sort of unpack Yeah. Sort of the business end, a little bit of the business end of things. So number one, we all have to understand that we got here because this actually is not new. That things come back in pop culture on 20-year, 25-year cycles, right? If you're not aware of that, and the way that functions is very simple, which is we now live in a world where children are marketed to directly, and they have products, and a lot of those products isn't just McDonald's and donuts and all that shit. It's stories and storytelling and cartoons and things like that, and they fall deeply in love with those things. And so, as those children grow up and now once they get disposable income, spendable income on their own in their late teens, early 20s, they tend to look backwards as well as forwards for their merch, for stuff that they're into. So you have always had these nostalgia merchants that wait for that 20-year period when those 8-year-olds who fell in love with Star Wars or whatever, or they fell in love with fucking Westerns or whatever, they turn 20, 25, 30, 35, and they look backwards and they go looking for this stuff. So that's one thing to remember about sort of the cycle that is pop culture, and that maybe takes a little bit of media literacy that not everybody has to even understand that. And that's been going on since really, particularly when radio started. That really kicked off a lot of the merchandising and stuff like that. So there's a 20-year cycle or a 30-year cycle, depending on who you talk to. Now, granted, it's on steroids now in a crazy way, and maybe that cycle is, and some people are even saying that cycle maybe even getting shorter now that it's like 10 or 15 years that people are starting to try to turn stuff over. Have you got any thoughts on that?
And there is just a mathematical possibility that the cycle will loop into itself if you're making remakes of remakes from 20 years ago, right?
Right, and which is...
If you only have remakes to remake, then what does the cycle become?
Right, exactly. And of course, and everybody, smart people are already saying, but wait, we've already had remakes of remakes, and we certainly do, man. And we had remakes of remakes in the 30s and in the 40s, believe it or not. I mean, and of course, if you want to think, there's obviously... And we're not talking about adaptation here, guys. That's a whole nother podcast. Hopefully, we'll get to. But of course, yes, no. We've been remaking Romeo and Juliet for hundreds of years already. I mean, you can even think of that. And in theater, we call it just restaging, or we call it a new production, or sometimes it's an actual revival. Which, for those that maybe don't know, in theater means you're taking an actual staged production and literally taking the prompt book and recreating that show.
Right. Yeah.
So there's that concept as well. But again, I just want to put I want to put a very fine point on it. The nostalgia merchant stuff is on steroids now, so much so to the point that, ladies and gentlemen, the little guy that you might know named J.J. Abrams, literally in interviews has come out and said that's his job, right? Yeah. His job isn't a film director. He's claimed that his job is a nostalgia merchant. So keep that in mind as you move through the world. Well, hey, there you go. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me of a pretty in-depth review of Force Awakens that I read that was trying to nail down, J.J. Abrams' exact style, the exact way he achieves his effect. Yeah. And it was very interesting. I don't know if you read the same review. It had...
Possibly.
Since it had something to do with, since everything has to be delightful in the nostalgia sense.
Yes.
It sort of short circuits the natural, the natural dramatic arc.
Yes.
The natural, or what used to be the natural dramatic arc.
Right.
So it's kind of, I mean, I just find it very neat that he said that, and it's a nice phrase to be a nostalgia merchant, and obviously that does have an effect. It's not storytelling as we used to know it.
Right.
But,
it's,
neither is modern dance sometimes,
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a new form of modern dance. And anyway, and he's particularly good at it. And, I know. And it makes me think of things like, Transformers as a counterexample where the nostalgia is being merchandised, but in an completely ineffective way that also subverts drama or plot.
Right.
Because Transformers, those Michael Bay movies, I like to say they actually destroyed plot. Like they don't.
Yes. Oh yeah.
They don't give a shit about. They have something, but they don't. It's not a plot, and they don't give a shit.
Yeah. No. He literally. I mean, those Michael Bay in general, pretty much his structure is literally 8 to 10 minutes of Act 1, maybe 2 minutes of Act 2, and then it's just all Act 3. No, I mean, no joke. It's like, it's crazy. He's extended the third act to, if you're a third act junkie,
okay.
his third acts are an hour long. It's nuts. It's nuts. Yeah.
I'm glad you give him that much credit for even that much structure. I just think it's a whole bunch of random shit that nothing supports itself, and it's just all big and loud. But anyway, blah blah blah. Yes, if there is a new position called Nostalgia Merchant, I chime in that yes, J.J. Abrams is good at it, and he's not trying to be good at the traditional things. And Michael Bay is also in that business, and he's not that good at it.
And he's not that good at it. There you go. It's a good spectrum to be on. I think it's a good spectrum to set up. So the second concept I have about how we got here is so that people need to understand that may not understand. People in the business probably, I'm sorry, I have to say the phrase the business, but whatever. I just mean sort of entertainment may understand. So there are certain IPs, again, intellectual properties, that have a fan base already, and that's just about everything that you saw. If you laid eyes on it as a child, if it was a toy, if it was a TV show, if it was a book, whatever, it's everything's up for grabs now. Because here's why this is useful for people to either remake or adapt or update these things. You have to understand the media saturated world that we live in, and I think everybody understands that now. It's not just media; it's advertising saturated. It's a saturated marketplace. So, of everything. And let me give you a simple example, right? And this is an example that no one here would most of the people listening to this won't even bother to understand. No, you wouldn't have encountered. There's a little thing called the AFM, which is the American Film Market, which is where movies go to be sold. If you don't know what a film market is, just Google it and look it up. But that's basically what happens at them. At the American Film Market this year alone, there were 12,000 feature films trying to find distribution. Okay? Those are movies you've never heard of trying to get your eyeballs' attention. Okay?
Yeah.
Let me be clear about that. 12,000 in 1 year. Okay? That's where we are at now. Now, that doesn't even count the shit that comes out of the studios or the television or any other, or just shit on YouTube you watch that's vying for your attention, okay? So in a marketplace that is this saturated with content, you have to understand that Hollywood and people who are putting millions of dollars behind a product want to try to hedge their bets. So, of course, it only makes sense that they go with things that already have a quote-unquote fan base, okay? Yeah. Or that already have what we also call name recognition, or you can also say that already have quote-unquote market penetration, which makes all of this sound much more sexy than it is. Okay, because it's not.
It is a form of pornography, this whole business.
This whole business is a form of pornography, of course. So the thing you have to understand is that if something already has a fan base and a following and people already know what it is, the marketing is much easier. And then, even better, if it has the sort of aforementioned fan base, they will support it and they will create their own media and content around that property already. They will they'll do things like what we're doing. We'll have a podcast about stuff. They'll talk about it. They'll make a YouTube video talking about how wonderful it was in their childhood. They'll tweet about it. So you have to understand this is all from a business point of view why these things get made. And some people don't understand when a lot of people sit around at the table and like, why doesn't anything new get made? Number one, there is some new stuff that gets made, but this is one of the main reasons why this kind of shit is happening right now. Because of the media saturation, because of the advertising saturation, anything with a recognizable fucking name, yes, even board games, all of a sudden penetrate through the noise and people automatically recognize it. And they're going to get some traction in the marketplace regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
And I'd like to add that that's why it's very important that you subscribe and like and view your favorite YouTube artist or your favorite independent music artist on their primary platform or whatever. Yes. Because, yes, when we are complaining about why new shit doesn't get made, well, you notice a lot of YouTube shows do get thrown onto major platforms, also on actual networks. Yep. And that's because they had a really high number somewhere. Right. It is not because they're actually good. I mean, they are good.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or they aren't. But the reason they actually made the leap is not because someone said, oh my gosh, this is a undiscovered piece of genius. It's because some dude who is a business-oriented guy looked at their number and said, "Oh, 2 million subscribers is the number I'm looking for," or "Oh, 5 million views is my cutoff point." So I want to make that super clear for everyone.
Right? Yeah. No, it's important for people. That part of the media literacy is like, it's weird. We now have to train the audience not just to find us, but like how to like help us. Like again, usually just 8 years ago, it was just like, oh, I just give the creator money, I buy their product, and that's supporting them. But it just isn't that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild, but I mean, just like it's useful to look at it that way because, as you say, these are business oriented decisions, and new stuff can break into business oriented decisions, but it's never it is so unlikely it's made on an artistic, soulful level of, gosh, that thing is really great.
Yeah.
It is incredibly likely that it will be made on some numbers level of, gosh, that thing has 90,000 subscribers already.
Yeah.
That feels nice to me.
Yeah.
That actually feels wonderful to me.
Yes.
That's the thing that gives them their warm, chubby, when they're doing their jobs. Anyway,
absolutely. And it makes them want to take, it's again, you got to think of it as just hedging their bets or managing their risk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
So that's what happens. So that's why you get the reboot of Saw that I'm sure will happen soon, or you get the sequel to the Blair Witch Project, even though it's been 15 years since that movie came out. That's why you get all this stuff, right? It's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons they will pour money into it. So, all right. So my next concept here to remind you is that creators with power, and although this is less and less happening, the creators who made the stuff that, at least certainly when Dom and I were kids in the 70s and the 80s, those creators were in a different system and got paid a very decent amount of money for creating these things. And they were able to hoard that money and then run off and do whatever they wanted. And then they decided to come back. So we're talking about people like George Lucas, Ridley Scott, and they're wanting and have the money, and now they have the tech, and they want to go back and they want to go to their stories and they want to fix, quote unquote, fix or tinker with them, right? Or clarify or whatever. So you do have a sort of couple of spates of creators who have these, sort of cherished IPs, and they either because back in the day, they didn't have the tech available to them, or they just had some shot that rankled their gizzard. And they want to go back and they want to replay in the same. They want to, replay in the same sandbox. So you get things like, and make no mistake, that is part of what the much maligned episode 1, 2, and 3 trilogy is all about. It's about George Lucas going back. I mean, outside of even just the re-releases of the Star Wars stuff, going back and tinkering again in the same sandbox with new toys, with upgraded toys. Yeah, and this podcast is not going to descend into some kind of weird fucking episode 1 through 3 bashing. I'm not interested in that, and whatever. I think that ground has been covered 10,000 times, but it is an interesting concept because I think, I think it's just something that happens.
I'm trying to think of one single good example of that thing you just described. one good example. Example of creating something good. I'm failing, but so we can.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say on that.
That's a rough one for me too. I don't know. Well, you could say like something like Evil Dead 2 is an example of that. I know you're not a horror movie fan, but like Evil Dead 2 is basically a remake of Evil Dead, right? Like it's a sequel, but it's kind of the same movie over again, just with a bigger budget and more things to play with. If you want to look at it that way. So that's one. There's another recent one that I thought.
I think that's stretching it because I think by your own definition, you were saying someone.
We're also not saying sequels. Yeah.
Gotten to a certain level of power, like Lucas and Scott. Definitely. That's
true. Well, I mean, Raimi got a chance to. I mean, there's a certain level of power there where hey, Raimi could have made whatever. Evil Dead, for those that don't know, was a breakout hit. It was a slow burn breakout hit, but it made a shit ton of money over. It took it about 5 years to gain traction and do it, but it made a crap ton of money. I mean, so Raimi could have done anything he wanted, but he decided to go back to Evil Dead and basically do it again and torture the living shit out of Bruce Campbell. But I don't know. It is a bit of a stretch for sure. It's a stretch. It's a stretch. So I want to abandon this because I don't want to fucking talk about this anymore. Sorry. So number 4, my other idea, and this is much more interesting to talk about, which is fans becoming creators, which is really happening now, and which is I think it always happened. Like, people were, of course, fans of movies became movie directors and movie writers. It only makes sense, very few of them just fell into the business. But what's really happening now is that fans become creators, and then they want to play with the old toys, the toys that they absolutely loved, and so, again, I don't have any direct examples of maybe somebody angling for it and being like, no, I have to do the next Alien movie and I've got some kind of traction, and that's my whole point. But you can feel that happening. I mean, everything from even like, the filmmakers who become comic book writers and the comic book writers who become filmmakers now, and all of this crossover. So, of course, they want to go back and they want to play with their those old properties.
That is my optimal career route. I want to stress that.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so you have to understand. So people also have to understand that as people come into the business and get traction, get a name, if they get a chance, maybe some people don't understand. Like, you'll get pitch meetings, quote unquote, where if you have a name and you're a hot director or you're a hot writer, studios will literally pull you in and be like, what do you want to work on? Or what have you got? And what do you want to work on? And if you can throw down on the table, I want to do a Green Arrow movie, or I want to do a, whatever the fuck. Please, somebody do a Green Arrow movie that's good. But you
like your Green Arrow, huh?
I'm a Green Arrow guy. Like, he's my one. He's actually my favorite DC character, and I just can't fucking. I don't know.
That's awesome.
They keep shitting on me about it. But anyway, or whatever it is, or you're like, I really want to be I really want to make sure I'm in the line for the next Star Wars, whatever, Star Trek, blah, 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 whatever thing. Because they're fans, and because it's now completely acceptable for fans to cross over and become creators of content. And again, for those, if you don't know, the Doctor Who reboot from 2005 is filled with fan creators, right? Like, these were people who were writing for the novels, for the Doctor Who novels, which was an open submission process at one point. So a lot of this is happening. It's happening in a bunch of different places. So of course it happens in Hollywood as well. You get Gareth Edwards, who is a fucking huge, obviously a monster fan, a kaiju fan, and guess what? Yeah. His second feature is wham, Godzilla, right? And again, I don't know the birth of that. I don't know if that's a lot of luck. If they were Universal or whoever owned that was gonna do the reboot anyway, and then his career happened to come along, or the other way around. I don't know. But understand that not only are studios looking to capitalize on that kind of stuff, capitalize on a fan base, creators are looking to go back and play with the toys they grew up with, right? And why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And I like to think that this is where the excellence of some remakes really comes out of, because we've been talking about it in a slightly disparaging way. It's a bunch of business, blah blah decisions. But I was ranting the other day on Facebook how, like, those things which actually improve a lot in the remake, like Battlestar Galactica, say, Westworld, is because people go back, and people with love for the thing go back and really just revitalize it from the structure on up, because they've thought about it. They've thought about it since they were kids. And
I want to table that, because I do want to talk about it. I want to talk about what makes these things actually good.
Great. Okay. I didn't know how many more things are on your.
I'm sorry. Things are on my list.
Massive commandments list.
I've got one more thing on this list, and then we'll get into some other things.
Okay.
So the other thing we have to talk about is that I don't see talked about enough, I think, about why there are reboots and requels and all this stuff, which is the expanded universe concept. Now, and you say, everyone bow to the West or the North or whatever, and bow down to the comic book industry, because this is all thanks to comics, right? This is the expanded universe concept. Sure, there's a couple of sort of novel lines that played with it. Maybe even there were some TV shows and stuff, but really this is a comic book thing. And so with an expanded universe concept makes these stories much more acceptable and possible in the general public's mind. Now, let me give you an example to tell you where I'm headed. You have to understand, for most people, just a few years ago, most people couldn't tell you what the fuck a parallel universe was, right? Like, or a parallel storyline, or what a fucking prequel even was, right? And honestly, it's It's due to the saturation of comic books and comic book movies, and of course the success of the MCU, and the DC jumping on board with that. That this expanded universe concept allows for, and again, it's not. Let me be clear, folks. I know. Stop yelling at your whatever you're listening to me on. It's not only in the comics world. There are plenty of science fiction stories, books, fantasy stories, fantasy books. Even you can even say go back to fairy tales and find these concepts. But for the general movie-going public's mind, which we are talking about here very specifically, particularly in the U.S., no one would have any idea, wouldn't understand even how to swallow this concept. Again, I don't think 10 years ago, right? I mean, what the fuck? There was a couple of shows that we all loved, or there was a couple of movies that dealt with those, parallel universe, rebooting a timeline, parallel timelines, stuff like that. And now everybody knows what that means, right? Which is just crazy pants to me.
Are you speaking about how they got people to swallow the new Star Trek, or
for example, right? Just even so, to even be able to reboot Star Trek, you have to be okay, well, I guess the audience is going to have to accept this alternate timeline, right? So, but even that phrase, alternate timeline, is
which they say clearly in the movie.
Is that's a quantum leap forward from geek culture going mainstream, right? It just wasn't a thing, right? I mean, most of the early reboots or whatever just don't even try to explain the concept. It's just you have to eat it. You know what I mean? But now, thanks to comic book movies and comic book language and all of that stuff, we accept it much more commonly. I don't know. That's my weird theory. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. What do you think? Please disagree.
No. I got that. In the same area as that point, I think that yes, let's take the MCU as a sort of a relatively new thing that's happened, a relatively new massive universe thing that integrates business and art and world pop culture, and everyone's loves it now because it seems, us comic book fans for a while was hey, expanded universe, right? Could we have one of those? And I think up till whatever 12 years ago, I feel like Star Wars was the one, possibly Star Trek also.
True.
Star Wars was the only one that had both an authentic following and authentic artistic energy, and this massive sprawling marketing of video games, toys, alternate universe stories.
That's true. Yeah, Star Wars.
And they could only and so they were holding that down, and no one else knew how to do that, and that's why Star Wars had that special magic, and because they had to keep bothering George Lucas to get in more Star Wars shit out of to keep the spine of it going, right? And Star Trek to a lesser degree.
Sure.
So that's why it's kind of funny, neat, ironic, however you want to say, that everyone's slavering over the Marvel expanded universe now. Because it's they're oh wait, this could work for something else. What else has this built-in thing where we don't have to just go to the one dude all the time to keep it going? Let's just reap the the fields of Marvel, and the universe will keep expanding. You can make all the toys you want. You can get all the artistic energy you want from the fanboy. So, so it's interesting how they're imprinting this language, which includes alternate universes and all this stuff, into our pop culture-ness now. And then there's the cynical side of it, which is it'll sell a lot of T-shirts and action figures. But there's also the authentic artistic side of it, which is that because Marvel is decentralized, it's not just George Lucas, and it's not just Captain America. It allows for people to work stories in through the fringes still. So anyway, that's my thought on that.
No, that's good. No, that's great. No, that's an excellent point. Yeah, I should have. Yeah, definitely got to throw Star Wars on that pile too. That helps this stuff. Although Star Wars doesn't quite yet deal with weird parallel universes and time fuckeries. Not yet, but yes, but it starts with the expanded universe. Yeah, no, you need the expanded universe to sort of really. To sort of get to this stuff for sure. And there's other properties, I guess, too, like Buffy, I'm sure, There has to be, yeah, and there's some alternate timeline stuff in Buffy, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and and whatever. Even in the original Star Trek TV series, there's an alternate time, whatever. And I guess you could say some of the time travel properties that, but it's not really properties. It's just, well, I guess like quantum leap and shit must have dealt with that kind of stuff.
Time travel.
Exactly right. So yeah, that helps too, but definitely. So I think great, good. So sort of covered some the pop culture mindset, becoming more aware of these ideas. So I want to shift now over to, I want to talk about which properties seem to do well with the rebooting, prequels, sequels, alternate timeline stuff. So one of the thoughts I had was that I think some source material is a little bit better suited for, particularly, let's start with remakes, right? Because that's one that tends to rankle everybody's horn, gets everybody up in arms about something. Everybody has one property they're desperate to protect from being remade for whatever reason, and fair enough. But I do want to look at some remakes that, like you said, are that are good. And the thing I started realizing was there seems to be a little bit of a thread here, at least for me. So here are some of my remakes that I think are that are good, or at least have lent themselves to a good string of movies. We mentioned it last week, which was interesting. Actually, two of these last week. No, was it last week? Whatever the W.D. Richter stuff was. So Invasion of the Body Snatchers seems to be remake proof. Every time you remake that damn story, it seems to be pretty awesome. And it's also suited to being updated to the modern day. It just has a central theme to it that is just delicious no matter what time period you sort of drop it in. Dracula, to be honest with you, seems to, and again, you could just say sort of the vampire story, but specifically the Dracula property, although the recent Dracula Untold was a nightmare and garbage, but there's a lot of good versions of the Dracula story, the movies that are out there that are pretty damn good. I'm going to throw one out that may surprise people. The Poseidon Adventure, which has actually been remade 3 times. Most people don't know that, including a made-for-TV movie. But I mean, it's a cruise ship that turns upside down and everybody has to try to survive. I mean, simple, and it's badass, and just when you get better technology, that you can do that story better. You know what I mean?
Have they not remade that since Titanic was the largest movie in the world? I mean,
no, they made
haven't they remade that
they
7 times?
They made a Poseidon Adventure after Titanic. Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Starring a bunch of people, but Kevin, what's his name? Not Kevin James. Fucking dude from Entourage.
Kevin Kline?
Kevin Dillon was in it.
Kevin Dillon, okay.
And I went and I saw that shit in the theater because I love the original fucking 70s Poseidon Adventure with Gene Hackman and shit. It's fucking awesome.
Right on.
But The Thing, which is originally a short story, the John Carpenter's The Thing, which is a remake. The Fly, the remake of The Fly, Cronenberg's The Fly is fantastic. Got a shout out to Little Shop of Horrors, man. That gets remade every so often, and it's pretty awesome every time. King Kong does well. To jump out of America, the Zatoichi story is remade fucking constantly, which is a blind samurai, blind swordsman storyline out of Japan, if you're not familiar with it. So I don't know. To me, these the ones that seemed that are particularly, again, I'm really just talking about remakes here. There's it's either thematically based for me, there's a good theme at the core of it, and you just kind of can't fuck it up, or that the remake just really benefits from an updating of technology, like the Poseidon Adventure, The Thing, The Fly, Little Shop of Horrors, King Kong. You just you can't. It's okay, well, we've got better tech, and let's just fucking update this thing, and it kind of looks cool. I don't know. You got any thoughts on that?
Wait, Chris, I'm sorry. Are you arguing that some stories are innately more suited for constant remaking? Or
yeah, I think so. I mean, trust me, I have a list of that. I am. I'm making the argument that some stories I think can sort of hold up to remakes, I guess. I mean, trust me, I've got a whole list here of bad ones that are counter examples to that as well, which is if you want me to go into those, I can go into those as well. The Clash of the Titans remake was garbage, and that should have been a good remake, but it should have been a good one, right? Fuck, okay, we can do Greek gods now perfectly, but it was garbage. The remake of Total Recall, garbage. The remake of RoboCop, I'm on the fence about. But even something recently, when you translate it from another culture, like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the American version is garbage. War of the World was awful for me. Some people really like that movie. I don't know, the fucking Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg War of the World.
Interesting.
I hate it. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which again might have benefited from technology, terrible. Speaking of Tim Burton, also swings and misses completely with his Planet of the Apes. I don't know, but I don't know. Let's talk about that. Yeah, what do you think? You think
all right. Well, I will make a counterpoint to that assertion. I have a different thing about it. And people who are my friends on Facebook will know my rant about this, which is I don't think it's about the story that you remake, which ones you choose. Yeah. It's the writing, stupid.
100%. Sure, of course. You can fuck up everything.
It's just that some things get remade and there's a really smart writer on it who makes it better than it was.
Right.
And some things get remade and they don't. And they're revealed as still not being, well, at least not being as good as the original.
Right.
Because I don't think you could whatever. Battlestar Galactica was kind of a cheesy original science fiction story. In its original form, it was cheesy.
Yeah.
They just went and fucking made it a great epic character-based story that was about everything in human history. It's not because Battlestar Galactica had that in it, like in some,
it doesn't.
Innate. No. It does.
That
doesn't.
One didn't. That particular one didn't, for sure. But okay, let's take something like I know you're not a huge fan, probably, but Invasion of the Body Snatchers, right? So very quick, just the concept that there is an invasion, alien, whatever, plant life, whatever, that can put a pod under your fucking bed, and in the morning, it's you. It's stolen you. And you come crawling out from under your bed, it murders you and takes your place in the world, right? That's fantastic. And that's hard to fuck up, man. I don't know. I'm sure you can, but hey, I don't know.
No, I mean, I grant you that that's something about the Invasion of Body Snatchers concept is indestructible, but I don't know. I feel weird about giving that license to make constant remakes just because some stories are branded. I mean, I if you really want to start a fight, I feel that way about Shakespeare.
Interesting.
Okay.
You feel which way about Shakespeare? You feel that he's indestructible, that you can just keep doing him? Is that
no,
what you mean?
I feel he's not indestructible. I feel he's context based, and I feel anointing certain stories or certain texts as these are the ones that can and should be made forever is not dangerous exactly, but not the world I want to live in.
I understand.
Because,
I get you.
I don't know. I'm much more into the idea that someone takes a notoriously cheesy movie like Westworld and makes it into a socially commentary based series that everyone's talked about. And I think that's because I think that's an act of authentic creativity, an act of good writing.
Yeah, no.
And that's the thing I'm a fan of.
For sure. If
you meld those things, obviously, Body Snatchers in the hands of the best filmmakers or the best writers, whoever you consider those to be,
right?
Then we'd have a fucking Body Snatchers movie that would take over the world. Well, interesting, bad choice of words. We'd have the best. We'd have a really good movie.
I hear what you're saying. No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and I'm probably being a little too generous to certain to writers in general.
You don't gotta agree with me. I was just framing it a different way. And here's another thing I should bring up. Like, okay, this is an interesting example. Like, I have a buddy who has the nice job. He works on Netflix's Voltron reboot.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
He's on the writing staff there somewhere. And I don't know. Did you watch either of the Voltrons?
The
old one or
cartoons.
the new one?
Yeah. No, the original cartoons for sure. Yeah. No, I did, and I think I watched the first episode of the reboot, and I for whatever reason, it didn't grab my attention.
Okay. Well, the new one has some things going on. Let's say they've definitely elevated the level of the writing, the ambitiousness of the writing. Let's just say. Cool. But my point is, like, the neat thing is a lot of these series they're rebooting now. You could say there are a lot of them that where the design aspect was like incredibly good and far surpassed the writing and dramatic storytelling bit.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those things are like Voltron. Yep. I'm using that example because that robot is just cool, right?
Yes, he's just cool.
That design is kind of immortal. That design is indestructible. But you had to get around the problem that it was kind of, for whatever reason, written as a kids show.
Right.
Written for a certain what they thought was the fan audience of the time, and maybe the writers just weren't putting their full love into it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the point is that old Voltron the stories would not hold up. Old Voltron the design still holds up.
No, that's a good point.
Because and Battlestar Galactica too. Also, the design of those ships and stuff. Right. The design of the Cylons is immortal, or at least in the way we're using that word. It holds up. It still gives you that thrill. The Cylon Raiders versus those cool colonial ships. So they keep that shit because that's those designers were doing a much better job than the writers at the time. And that's my point on that one.
Yeah, no, and I think right, and to sort of bring it back to my point a little bit is, maybe that's what it is. There are certain, I don't know, we just I like coining this phrase. There are certain things that are indestructible, right? Like, if you just can at least bring those things forward and then surround them with something new and engaging and interesting, good writing or whatever, you're gonna be a long way to making something that's actually good. If it's a remake or a reboot, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or even like a prequel. I think it's very important for prequels to pull the right things out as well, so that there is a flavor but is still being updated. I mean, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving into things that sort of what Dom and I think makes these things good now. And for me, that's like, if there's a character that you're playing with, like especially for a reboot, like if there's a character that you're updating, you have to alter the character in a certain way, but you have to really be true to the essence of that character or understand what makes that character cool, right? That's what's really important. And I don't know, for me, you have to, what I have this weird phrase, which is like, you have to honor the source material without slavishly be adhering to like moments, which for me, that's the definition of fan service, right? And then we can move into some movies that maybe do that badly. For me, while the reboot of Ghostbusters was perfectly fine, sort of on a joke-to-joke moment level, the fan service in it got in the way of its own storytelling, right? For me, where it's like, I don't need the old Ghostbusters to come back and make these cameos and the whole movie stops dead. Like, and that stuff was some of the least funny shit in the movie. Like, the whole Bill Murray character was a complete throwaway. Like, I just weird and wasn't funny at all. And like, and I don't need Dan Aykroyd showing up and saying, I ain't afraid of no ghost. That makes me fucking cringe. And you just watch, and I appreciate where it comes from, because these women are like, and these creators are like, no, we love these guys. And that's fine if you want them in the movie, but don't stop your movie cold and give them a shitty throwaway line. Like, it just bugged me. It was much better to see Harold Ramis as a bust, and God bless it, he was dead, and as a bust in the background in one scene, and just be like, that's cool. That's much cooler to me than Bill Murray getting 2 scenes and him getting jokingly blown out a window, right? Sorry, spoilers for Ghostbusters. Anyway,
it checks the box, that bus does, and yet doesn't interfere. I'm glad you said fan service. I'm glad you said Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is an interesting example because it was sort of struggling between being like a clean reboot of fully new universe, right, and the fan servicey part where like, oh well, someone's going to complain. Well, a lot of people did complain that there were women because people are stupid.
That's dumb.
And then also people would internally complain if there were no old Ghostbusters in it.
Right.
So somewhere in the too many cooks spoiling the soup thing that became conflated and weird. Like, I would have preferred a clean reboot in the sense of just tell a story again these women characters.
Right. And the other thing is, like, don't do this for me again. What certain and RoboCop was sort of the remake of RoboCop was definitely a problem with this, which is like, okay, we're gonna stop and have this scene from the old movie and say, see, it's the scene from the old movie that you guys know and love, and it doesn't make any sense for the story we're telling right now. But like, here's that scene you love, and aren't we cool for including it? And it's like, no, you're not, because you just fucking ruined your own movie. Like, you're in your own way now. And that to me is what I would sort of put under the umbrella of sort of fan servicey shit.
Right.
Or, like I said, sort of slavishly adhering to these moments that you think makes your thing good.
Right. And also, I want to add that this is especially interesting discussion as it relates to the comic book movies, the Marvel movies, because they do a lot of fan service, which does, make us happy and makes other people go, huh? So I mean, I do want to, while we're making these points about like what makes a story like really universally appealing,
yes.
I do want to apologize to everyone who I've ever watched a Marvel movie with, and I was like, oh my god, Spider-Man's got the mechanical web shooters instead of the organic ones. Oh my god, that's so great, because I realized that
that's for you.
That's for me. That's something that I am enjoying on a level it does not really matter.
Right, exactly. I mean, and you can even say, speaking of nostalgia, and it's very nostalgia merchanty too, because you get something like Stranger Things, and I know Stranger Things is definitely still within the spoiler range, so definitely spoilers for Stranger Things. Like, that is nothing but wall-to-wall fan service without it being an existing property already. You know what I mean? Like, which is hysterical, and they can get away with it, and it was like, my wife had to turn to me and be like, look, on episode 2, you're going to make this much noise, like squee noises, because you're so happy that you see the thing that you did when you were a kid. And it was like, I had to control myself. Like, it's so, it's reached an interesting fever pitch when you get something like Stranger Things that is really half fan service. I mean, they're telling their own story, thank God. But there's...
And I have to say, I did not dig Stranger... Sorry, I interrupted you, but...
No, please, go.
I did not dig Stranger Things for that reason.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's pure nostalgia merchanty stuff. But anyway, for sure. And that's that. I think the reason I bring up Stranger Things in this context is that I think that's a new weird niche of storytelling.
Oh, yeah, it totally is.
It's really brand new. We could, and again, and ladies and gentlemen, we could, if you love Stranger Things, we couldn't have Stranger Things without all these reboots and all this shit happening, guys. Like, if literally 10 years ago or 12 years ago, if those guys the Duffer Brothers went and pitched that show, people would look at them like they were insane, and be like, no one gives a shit. Stop it.
No one. What are you talking about?
Yes, right. So, anyway, for those that are complaining about all the reboots and the requels and all this stuff, you wouldn't get something like Stranger Things without all of this going down right now. By the way, so
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't like. I guess I didn't even like E.T. when it came out. So whatever. The thing that Stranger Things is rearranging, I know it wasn't a fan original, so the nostalgia merchant thing isn't.
Yeah. No,
isn't that strong on me in that case?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not just doing the crazy. I don't want to turn this into a fucking Stranger Things podcast. Anyway, we'll unpack that some other time. But whatever. For my money, they're doing a hell of a lot more than just E.T. They're also like doing some John Carpenter stuff. They're doing fucking Stephen King stuff. They're doing a bunch of stuff. They're doing all that stuff, and they're doing E.T. at the same time, which is crazy pants. But anyway, who cares? So there's one other concept I really want to bring up, which is remakes across cultures, which I think is also an interesting point here to bring up, because it is a point and it is important. And I want to bring up a couple, because there's also a couple that lurk in the American canon as brilliant films that I want to fucking blow out of the water. But so first of all, I'll start with across culture remakes that I think are quite good that maybe some people don't know about. So there's a Hong Kong movie called A Woman, a Gun, and a Noodle Shop by Zhang Yimou, which is a remake of fucking the Coen Brothers' Blood Simple, believe it or not, set in fucking... it's a period Chinese piece, and it's kind of great. So if you can check that out, it's Zhang Yimou. Forgive me if I believe I'm pronouncing that right. It's a
I think it's Zhang Yimou.
Yimou, thank you.
But
but
I'll have to look it up. And I've heard of that movie, but not seen it.
Anyway, it's pretty great. The Ring, hey, think about what you think about either the Japanese to the American remake of The Ring. That's pretty great. A lot of people don't know that Some Like It Hot is actually a remake of a French movie, of a French film.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And of course, all of the goddamn remakes of The Seven Samurai and Yojimbo, which most of our audience will probably will know that a lot of Westerns and spaghetti Westerns are all just redoing Yojimbo or some version of The Seven Samurai. Either directly or indirectly. Then you also get what people really don't know is that television is really on this train in the last 20 years. If a show is immensely popular in a large market somewhere in Europe or South America, it comes to America just as America exports its TV across cultures as well. If you were fans of Ugly Betty was if I'm not mistaken, a Mexican show first. That came to American shores, or it was a Spanish show. I can't remember which. The Killing, if you're fans of AMC's The Killing, that was a fucking Danish show first. The Bridge, a lot of BBC shows. The Office, ladies and gentlemen, please understand, was a British show first. And so this happens a lot in television, where there's these remakes, but across a cultural divide. So, and it doesn't always work. So, for example, of that, like Le Dîner de Con, which got turned into Dinner with Schmucks in America. But if you see the French version, it's great. It's so brilliant, and it gets turned into this Steve Carell nonsense in the U.S. Not that Carell's at fault for that, but whatever. For those that don't know, True Lies, which is a movie I despise, is actually a pretty damn funny, also French movie called Le Total.
I just made a True Lies reference earlier today.
No shit, really? Are you a fan of that movie? I'm not a huge fan.
No, I said you look like you just went to the True Lies ball. I probably mumbled it, but you look like a secret agent who is in the True Lies ballroom scene.
That's funny.
And yes, I don't like True Lies either, but I remember parts of that movie. Anyway, whatever.
Nolan's Insomnia. Nolan's Insomnia.
You can't see Chris right now, but he's dressed up like a secret agent.
Oh yes.
Anyway, go on. Sorry.
No. So, and Nolan's Insomnia is also a remake that I think completely misses. But anyway, so any thoughts on that, about the sort of the cross-cultural remake thing?
Yeah. Well, to give Steve Carell some love points, I think the American Office does elevate the genre. I mean, I don't think without taking away or contributing to Ricky Gervais' legend, I just fucking love the American Office. I like them both, but I love the American Office more. I think it's great.
Cool.
And harkening all the way back to when a fan starts, what were we saying? When a fan starts creating the properties that he loves.
Yeah.
Star Wars. George Lucas was kind of remaking a Kurosawa movies or several Kurosawa movies.
Right.
Which he honestly loves.
Yes.
He was a fanboy of those Kurosawa movies.
Sure.
And he found, God bless divine inspiration, a way to bring them over into this American science fiction-y opera Western pseudo context.
Yeah, totally.
So it goes back and forth. It's just like, that's a cycle. Star Wars is a fan it's a fan film remake of some Kurosawa movies. It just happens to be the best one ever.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good one.
But
for sure.
I just whatever. So the fanishness energy is doing something good there, and I'm glad you mentioned that about Some Like It Hot, because that movie is a really weird plot. It explains a lot of things.
It explains a few things. It definitely explains a few things. And again, just for the fucking Maltese Falcon was remade twice before it was the version that we all know it. Like you've got to. This is sometimes just to tell, whenever somebody corks off, like, oh my God, all the remakes, let's just tell them to shut up. And like, they've been sucking this stuff down for decades. And again, it's at a fever. I'm not arguing that it's not at a ridiculous fever pitch right now. But it is for all the reasons I sort of tried to lay out at the beginning of the podcast. There is a reason for it folks. It's
right.
not that
right.
no one is smart enough to create new material, right? It's a lot of business decision behind it, and it's a lot of creator-driven stuff that's going on. Also, for people to earn their money and pay their dues.
Yeah. There are a few that seem so hopelessly cynical and pointless that they're just made a business decision, like Gem and the Holograms, maybe.
Yes.
And although you could have a good Gem and the Holograms movie, but whatever. Yeah. Those guys weren't thinking about that.
Yeah.
And fucking Denzel Washington as the Equalizer, which was just
so weird. Yeah.
An 80s or maybe 90s violent TV show. Like
mostly 80s.
No one was clamoring for an Equalizer remake.
It was just I don't even know if it has anything to do with the TV show. I used to actually watch it. Robert Urich, man, a little shout out to Robert Urich on the fucking Equalizer.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a bad show, but it didn't have any identifiable concept like say Voltron that you needed to remake.
Yeah,
that was just sort of like part of
threw in. Yeah, totally. That's good. That's a good point. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
this actual podcast, by the way, will be remade next week with different people. So
so you'll get the sexy Christopher and the angrier Dom. Maybe how about that?
I will be played by a white woman. Don't worry.
Yes. So you get to be the sexy one, I get to be the angry one. All right, fine, fair enough. Deal. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think there's more to unpack here, but I think that we'll wrap this up for now. There's some good things. I had some other thoughts about maybe some good. We could talk about reboots, but fucking who cares? I think you guys all know what the sort of the good reboots are, and we've covered. I don't think we're going to say anything new about anything about this.
But please nominate some in our comments if you're thinking about it.
Yeah, please let us know what you guys think. Which are what are some good remakes? What are some good reboots? What are good prequels?
Or which are the worst ever?
Which are the worst ever? I'm very proud of us for not fucking falling into the episode 1 through 3 and the I'm forgetting that shitty Alien prequel or reboot
Prometheus.
Or fucking Prometheus. Christ,
Prometheus.
God. Pile of garbage. I know someone is yelling at their phone, but fuck off. It sucked. Anyway.
Had some good actors in it.
Had some great actors in it. But anyway, we didn't do that, so I'm very proud of us for not falling into that stuff. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we usually would go into a segment that we call Issues. But I just named all of them, so there you go. I don't think we need issues. There's far too many.
We'd have to call this one Reissues.
Reissues. Nice. And again, I don't think there's.
But we're not going to.
We're not even going to go into issues this time. There's obviously too many to list, and everybody's already endlessly complained about them. If you want, poke your local Lord of the Rings book fan and have them yell at you yet again about why the movies suck, or whatever, or the reboot people who still want to yell about episode 2 at you or something. That's all out there. So, I don't know. We'll go into before we get into final thoughts. Do want to let you know that next week we are going to keep on this sort of concept train, and we're going to try to unpack some sidekicks, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're going to do next week. The concept of sidekicks and some of our favorites and some of our places where sidekicks maybe fell down on the job here and there, creator-wise. Mm-hmm. So, final thoughts. Dom, what do you got to say about reboots, prequels, requels, sidequels?
Sidequels.
I don't know. I made that one up.
Nyquils.
What do you got to say about it?
We said a lot of things. I'm still very curious about Rogue One because it is a strange hybrid of all these things.
Yeah.
It's pretty much. It doesn't need to exist, honestly. It's pretty much a nostalgia merchandising film.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually have any reason to exist.
Right.
Yet, it is a story that can be told.
Yeah.
That will maybe a very entertaining and story. It looks like it's going to be a good film. I mean, It looks like it's going to be at least better than all the episode 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. So it has a weird space in this thing because I'm glad that it exists.
Right.
I can't for the life of me think of a reason that you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean it's wacky. I mean, you know, and some people are sort of complaining that, you know, movies, these big franchise movies now are basically becoming TV episodes.
Sure, yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because I don't know. I'm not sure.
Because people love TV and they love the episodicness, and I think that mainly comes from the capitalistic concern that the episodics they can make more money on by planning the advertising just so and controlling growth just so and.
Yeah, and I think it's just weird that people are bitching about it. That it's like I'm like, what does it matter if it's if it's an hour and a half episodic versus like a 20-minute or a 30-minute or a 60-minute episodic? I just don't understand why people are like sort of really seemingly against that idea. I don't know.
Well, I think we'll get a referendum on that, so to speak, with Rogue One because Rogue One could be that episode where they found out the plans to the Death Star. And that was a good episode, or it could be that like, why did they make that movie? Because we knew that already, and they just had to throw out one movie a year, like some stupid TV show.
Right.
I think both those scenarios are possible.
Good point.
So excited to go.
And Dom will have an answer in a couple of weeks. Yes. Nice. Yeah. No. I mean, I think that's a great final thought. I really don't have a final thought outside of everything I already spewed about it all. Which is just everybody keep in mind that what's happening right now is not just part of the creative forces at work in Hollywood or in big budget filmmaking. It's also, and almost every creative force at the big budget level, guys, is you can always go back and try to unpack some money decisions, and you just won't understand the full context if you don't do that, right? If you don't understand that someone who makes a $250 million product probably wants some of that money back, you're missing at least half of the picture, and you're kind of stupid if you don't take that shit into account. Sorry. Because you're just living in a fantasy land if you think people are just making this shit to make this shit. No, you because put it personal, ladies and gentlemen, you wouldn't spend $2.50 on just about anything and not expect to take something back with you, right? Not expect to get something in return, right? Really, honestly.
Like half a bagel at least.
Yeah, half a bagel at least, and now tack on 7 zeros after that, and then feel like you're gonna like you're not gonna try to earn some of that money back. So, but anyway, cool. As always, ladies and gentlemen, we are over the moon thankful and grateful to have you guys as audience. However you find us at the YouTubes, on the iTunes, we are on the Stitchers now as well. The WordPress blog, we love it. If you like us or love us, please do leave a review on iTunes. It does help people find us. You can find us on our Facebook page. Likes really matter there as well. Again, as we always say, comment, like, subscribe, not just to us, but to everybody that you like and love. Please. And
anything that's a number, just try to make the number bigger.
That's the number bigger. Yes.
That's the rule of social media artistic support. It will not cost you any money.
Yeah.
You can find a way to make that number bigger.
Right.
By do it completely for free.
Yeah, completely for free. And just leaving that review on iTunes. I know it takes some time out of your day, but just like you just freaking click the stupid stars and write groovy and hit send, and it helps us a lot.
Which again, I get is just to increase the volume number of reviews, not
yes.
Exactly. Sorry, that was extra cynical, but
that was extra.
Well, because then the review now. There are 171 reviews as opposed to one that was the best review ever. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, totally. And we always want to leave you with what we're working on as well. Yeah. So, Dom, what's going down in your world?
Well, it was the end of this thing they call National Novel Writing Month, and I did not complete a draft of a novella, but I wrote about 36,000 words.
Nice.
And I have them all mapped out. Like,
cool, man.
I have all the scenes mapped out, and I mean, at some point we might want to take up like creative process things, just because I think they're interesting.
Man. Let's do it.
Like, I'm not like a real I'm not like that linear like write and get yourself in the corner and write yourself out of it thing.
Yeah.
Like, I like whether it's a screenplay or a fiction. Like, I like getting all the beats. And in the case of novels, they like to call them scenes. But just mapping out all the scenes and then fleshing out each scene like as an island until the islands start to connect.
Yeah,
and that's what you know what I mean.
Sure.
People do it different ways.
Yeah, man.
So, but without having a whole draft, I've got all the little scenes and all the little islets, like pretty much where I think they need to be.
Nice.
That's just like a great feeling.
That is a great feeling. Yeah, no, part of it, I love sometimes some of the best creative process is just making the connecting tissue happen. That's always very super fun. Yeah, I love
totally.
that shit. I love that shit. Cool, man. Nice. Excellent. Lovely to hear.
Yeah.
So the big news on this end is, as always, the feature film trundles forward. The film is called Joanne. We had lost our actor. We had a casting session in London on Monday, and I'm proud. By the time this gets out to the world, it'll be okay to announce that we have the wonderful, amazing Alex Reed, and now involved in the project. She is a woman from The Descent, which I mentioned earlier in the podcast. She's the third lady lead in The Descent. Like I said, it is crazy. I'm a fan. Like, talk about fan-created content, whatever. The Descent is one of my favorite movies, and the fact that I'm going to get a chance to, chop it up with this woman and work together with her is it's one of those weird pinch-worthy moments, It's crazy pants that's even happening. So super excited to announce that Alex Reed is involved with the project, and I'm super crapping my pants that I got to shoot a feature in 5 weeks, but it's fucking on like Donkey Kong. So I'm very excited about that. So
that's great.
Hooray!
May you have a very good creative collaboration, and I know it's going to be an intense one. So it's great to hear that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm good
times.
Yeah, that wonderful, wonderful, crazy excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We have been elevating the genre, as always. I am Christopher Morrison. That is
Dominic.
And we love you. Comment, like, subscribe, and we will see you next week for some sidekick action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. I just feel weak next to Chaku and Cheese.